me, Sean Capri. I'm glad you're here, and you're listening to the most horsepowerful podcast on the internet. It's the Xbox Drive. I'm on a Skype call with my friend Ryan Turford. He's the man on the moose, and on our journey today, those Elden Ring reviews are out and they're amazing, and you can now Twitch stream directly from your Xbox Series X or Series S or One. So let's jump on into the Xbox Drive.
Greater than X.
You almost made that really clean, Sean. Hello, Sean Capri.
Almost, I was there. You know what? I'll let people guess on at what point in the intro did I wonder if I hit the record button or not, because I wasn't sure, my friend. I'm like, I think I did. I think we're good.
It's always good to double check, though, Sean, because you never know. It's either that or like that we have to use the backup record, which no one ever likes. No one does.
Nobody wants to use that or do it again, but we can't. We ain't got time for that.
We ain't got time to bleed, even though we're just talking about nothing going on here. Of course, this is the Xbox Drive. We talk about Xbox all the time, except for right now. So folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of awesome ways to do that. Number one, subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. We're on all the places you find podcasts. So check us out, hit that subscribe button. Maybe, rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That helps the show go a long way, as well as, review us. Leave an Apple Podcast review. That helps the show grow as well. Also, if you want to see our beautiful faces every week, head over to YouTube, youtube.com/YouMeCapri. And of course, like, subscribe, share, ding, 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 ring that bell because, it'll give you notifications. But also, again, helps the show grow on YouTube. And then last but not least, of course, heading over to Patreon, patreon.com/YouMeCapri if you want early access to this show, as well as some early perks, including, while we're welcoming a new patron, of course, Dave Moore, founder of the Xbox
the
Drive,
OG, man.
Now a patron over at patreon.com/YouMeCapri. If you want to join Dave Moore, of course, over there and all the fine folks, the over 70 patrons over at Patreon, go check us out, patreon.com/YouMeCapri. All right, let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It's time for the playlist. And Sean, we played some games this week. Even I played games, even though I talked last week about how I was playing nothing. So I'll let you go first, my friend. What'd you play?
Well, I think we should start off a bit of I think we've started something, Ryan. We have taken off as true influencers because late last week, just after we recorded my kids, we were having a conversation. I don't remember exactly how it came up, but one thing led to another, and suddenly I'm busting on my Xbox 360 and my Rock Band drums and my Xbox or my Guitar Hero 3 guitar and the microphone, and me and my kids, we are rocking out to Rock Band 2, my friend, and that has been kind of like the mainstay. Actually, it was a bit of a moment. I'm not going to lie. Chelsea tweeted it out. My wife tweeted it that I've been waiting over 10 years for this moment. And I've been saving this gear somewhere in the garage, just for this time. And it is here. The kids love it. They ask about it all the time. They thank goodness for no fail mode because they're awful at it. They have no idea what they should be doing. But Lincoln loves singing, and it's so great. And he can kind of read the karaoke stuff that's happening, and he's trying to figure out the lyrics, and it's super great. And it's interesting to hear what happened to be their favorite songs right now. It's That's What You Get by Paramore. Nice. Very good song. Nice. Love it. Among a few others. And that's kind of been the big deal this week, which is not current at all. It's ancient. It's 2 generations ago, for goodness sake. But it definitely has me going, how do I get my hands on the latest version with new instruments? Because they're old, they're dusty, and all these sorts of things. And all of the licenses are gone. All of my save progress apparently didn't make it to the cloud, so we're starting from scratch. I would have loved to be able to bring over the song list from Rock Band 1 into 2, because I had that before. It must have just vaporized. I don't know. Maybe it should have been on the blockchain. You know what I mean, Ryan?
So if you purchased it before, you should be able to re-download it. You have to navigate to the store and find it at this point.
Yeah, I don't even think that thing is there to navigate to.
No, it's just I have it on Rock Band 4. I have the export from Rock Band 1 in Rock Band 4 that I didn't have to buy separately because it carried over from my purchase of it on 360 for Rock Band 1.
We might need to talk offline because what I want to tell you is Rock Band 1 has a way better set list. It's way better. Because when I played it originally, I did have them carried over. And what I think I'm realizing is how little of the songs from Rock Band 2 I actually played and how much from Rock Band 1 I just continue to play in Rock Band 2.
So the downside with Rock Band 1, though, is that as good as that soundtrack is, the problem is half the songs they couldn't get the license for. So they ended up doing covers of them, which some of them are good, but then some of them are like really
Rock
bad
Band?
covers. Yeah, Rock Band 1 in particular, because they did.
I don't remember that.
Because that was something that carried over from Guitar Hero and Guitar Hero 2.
Guitar Hero for sure.
Like half of those.
Rage Against the Machine covers and stuff. Like, oh man. Lamb of God, I think, was another one.
Yeah, like for example, they had a song by Rush in the original Rock Band that was a cover, and it was actually a pretty good cover by Rush, but it's like I would have preferred to just have like the song from Rush specifically, and they re-released it later as like a quote unquote vault version, which was actually the real song versus like the cover. So that's one of the downsides to the Rock Band 1 soundtrack. It's like, as good as that soundtrack is, a lot of them are covers versus Rock Band 2. They made a conscious effort to make sure that all the bands that were on there had officially licensed music going forward. But that's why the license key disappeared so quickly from the store, because you can't buy any of them anymore. You can't buy Rock Band 1, 2, or 3's license key at this point to carry them over. But
goodness gracious.
Yeah, so that's awesome. I'm glad that you actually picked it out. And
good.
You became an influencer, Sean, because you influenced me to pick back up Rock Band again. So I actually have all 3 Rock Band games for 360, but I also have Rock Band 4 because I actually bought it at launch because I bought like the guitar bundle. So I have the brand new guitar with a physical copy of the game. And I mean, it's a game I always have been going back to, but it's been a long time since I've gone back to it. But in a way, it kind of reinvigorated my love for games again. I talked about it on last week's show where, you know, I'd been kind of down and out with games for about a month now and just couldn't, you know, get any traction on anything. And it was like music games that really brought me back from it. Like going back to what we talked about a few weeks on the show where I was playing Taiko Drum Master to playing Rock Band. I also pulled up my PS2 this week, Sean, and played some Dance Dance Revolution Supernova.
Snap, did you really?
Yeah, so I was definitely like all about the rhythm games this week, and I finally got back into playing normal games this week again because I went and pulled out, I was like, man, I'm really in the mood for Catherine. So I'm going to I'm going to go back and replay Catherine on the Nintendo Switch. So I've been playing that, and I feel like I'm officially back, Sean. I'm back in the swing of things when it comes to games. And it's all thanks to you for being an influencer and
look at that,
getting me to pull back out my plastic instruments. But yeah, we'll talk more off air, but definitely you're going to want to grab, you know, Rock Band 4. The instruments for it, though, the new ones are really expensive because they had a very limited print run. Because I actually did an unboxing video that I went back to because I was like curious about it. It's like, on my personal YouTube channel, it's like the highest viewed video on there. But it's me opening the guitar bundle. And even then I remember them like that stores in Toronto would get 3 per store for the guitar bundle and then 1 band bundle per store. And then we never saw them again. So,
well, and I think that's a big reason why you don't see these games much anymore is I think people just kind of got tired of plastic instruments and plastic things, especially in the Wii days too. Just like there was just stuff everywhere. And now that I think about it, like I had the Guitar Hero drum set and I'm wondering if that might be in another, you know, dark corner in the household, maybe under the stairs somewhere. I have to look that up because I'm worried about the pedal on the Rock Band drums. Like it's just flimsy plastic. Yeah. They were famous for cracking in half, you know, as I'm getting a little, like I'm on expert, man. Like I've lost a little bit of it, but I'm doing pretty good on this stuff and I'm really enjoying it. And I need that updated pedal that they ended up coming up with the metal pedal, the pedal to the metal. You know what I'm saying?
And that was like stock with Rock Band 3 going forward, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely needed that one. And that's why like all the time whenever we'd go to like a local retro video game store in Toronto, like they would have the drum sets there, but they would always be the Rock Band 1 or 2 ones with like the crappy pedals and stuff like that.
Gotta watch out for it, man. Yeah. It's the one thing though, and maybe to your point about like getting back into games, when I sit down to play Rock Band or Guitar Hero or whatever it is, I always say to myself, I'm just gonna play like 1 or 2 songs.
Yeah.
And then I look back at my watch and it's like, it's been 2 hours, man.
Yep.
Like it is, I think you made a joke, I think offline, or we were chatting, it's like looking at the endless set list, where like, you might as well get into this marathon thing. Like, haha, wouldn't that be crazy? I'm like, dude, I've been playing this thing for 3 hours at this point. Like, so when I say like I'm getting back into it, like it's not like we had like a night of it. Like this is the game of the week for me, man, is Rock Band 2, a little bit of Guitar Hero, Metallica. I've got all of them busted out, man. Nice. So probably going to keep going on with this one, man.
That's awesome, man. Well, Sean, I know you played something else this week as well that we should probably get to before we move on to the rest of the show. So tell me about Destiny 2.
let's focus mainly on Rock Band 2 and then also Destiny, which I think is comparable to how much I played of the games this week. Of course, Destiny just came out yesterday as we were recording this, so jumped on with Jace over at twitch.tv/Backeridge and walked through a couple of story missions, and it's Destiny. But there's definitely things, if you're a Destiny kind of crazy Destiny player, you've been playing this for a long time, seems like there's a lot to love. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of dumb when it comes to this stuff, and I don't really care. It's a lot of shooty stuff. They've upgraded some stuff for my Void class, my Warlock class. I don't know, man. Very cool stuff, but I had a great time playing with Jace yesterday. I think I'll have maybe more to say next week. I'm playing on PC, again, all those frames and all those Ps and all those things, all the teraflops. And it's Destiny's back, man. And I think people seem to like it. So I'm curious if anybody else is out there they want to play that's got crossplay. We were playing with people on PC and PlayStation, all the things. So it's good stuff, man. Destiny's back. Let's go.
Nice. So then real question I have for you that I'm sure there's probably someone listening to this podcast kind of screaming into their MP3 player of choice as to what that you didn't talk about this. How beginner friendly do you think this expansion is for someone that's maybe newer to Destiny who hasn't played it before? Because I know you're kind of off or on with Destiny anyways, Sean.
Yeah, I'm kind of the worst.
So what do you think for someone who's like new that wants to jump into this? Like with the first couple hours, let's say that you played, how beginner friendly do you think it is?
Well, I'll say this. I jumped in with some real veterans of the game, and they played on legendary difficulty. Don't do that. Avoid that altogether. I was really like, it really just speaks to how much I treasure my friendship with Jace, that I endured legendary. It was hard as all get out, man. There's timers on how long you can revive your friends, and it boots you out and all this stuff. Like, don't do that. But the best thing about it is it kind of puts everybody up to a certain level. So you don't have to like do any extra work. You don't have to worry about anything else. If this is your first time or if you've kind of been lapsed in Destiny for a long time, it brings you up to speed, gets you to a certain level, and everything's fine from that standpoint. What you will have to learn is like who to go talk to get these bounties or turn in this to this guy over here to get a weapon and things like that. If you're new to Destiny, then yeah, there's lots to learn, but I don't think that much has changed from day one. I think no matter when you jumped into Destiny, you're going to have to figure out some systems. Yeah. But with all that said, if you don't know and you don't care, you can still pretty reasonably and easily jump into Destiny, shoot some stuff, play with friends, and then have a good time. It's really scalable, honestly, on that front. I don't know if that we've really talked about that too much with Destiny in the past, but you really can just play it as a shooter. You can then play as a solo person. You can jump in with a friend, do the story missions. You can do the PvP, or get really deep into it and start like race towards the end gaming, race towards the raids, which I'm very curious to know how close anybody is to completing the raid for this one. But story is, if you're into the Destiny lore, it's there, and you're probably geeking out about that, and good for you. I have no idea. There's this witch queen lady named Seth. I
mean, it's in the name of the game, Sean. I would imagine.
Well, the witch queen is, but her name is like, it's like, I don't know. When you're in it, I don't know that you really think about this sort of thing, but sometimes it's just like I hear people talking about it. It's like, you ever think about how dorky some of this stuff is? It is Lord of the Rings level, like absolute dorky fiction, fantasy, space stuff. And I'm here for it, man. That's not a criticism at all. It's just, they go for it. Bungie really goes for it. They're not pulling any punches with this stuff. So, but yeah, it's super fun. Runs great. I don't have the most up-to-date PC, so it's running great on my system, and it's available on everything. So, but it's a busy month, man. It's a busy time. There's lots going on. I'm also playing Horizon, which not really a topic of conversation for this show, but that really is when I sit down to play Horizon Forbidden West. I'm not even in the Forbidden West yet, for goodness sakes. Apparently, you can spend like 20 hours before you go to the Forbidden West. But that's for
I heard it's a really long game, so I would imagine probably a long.
Big. They got a board game, Ryan. You can play like a like Gwent. It's kind of like you got a little board game in here too. Little plastic figures. Nice. Pretty cool.
I mean, as long as it's better than the dice game from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Sean, that's all I care about.
The jury's still out. I really only went, they get like different levels of tutorials. I just did the first one, and I honestly don't even think I got a trophy for it. So I'm a little peeved about that.
Excellent.
Little chintzy on those trophies in Horizon. So
I guess, but I heard the platinum's actually easy for that game. So you never know.
Yeah, we'll see.
But anyways, let's slam the brakes on this conversation. It's time for some breaking news. Now, I know we've got a bunch of stuff on the dock here, but I want to bring in one story, Sean, that I forgot to add to the dock, But I'm bringing it up now because I don't want to forget about it. It's not a huge
surprise.
But this got announced out of nowhere this morning. So we talked about the Game Pass games that were coming to Game Pass this February, but one that they didn't put on the list that they announced this morning, Dragon Ball FighterZ is coming to PC Game Pass today, the day you're listening to this on February 24th.
Nice.
So definitely go check that out on PC. I know
that's a good game.
That we have some PC Game Pass listeners who write in all the time asking for more PC games on Game Pass. And there you go. It was already a PC heavy kind of end of the month anyways for Game Pass that we talked about last week, but having another game on there is pretty awesome. So there you go.
Nice. Okay.
All right. Next up, the other news that we got this morning from Xbox is that starting today, Xbox One and Series X and S have been updated to allow you to live stream to Twitch directly from the Capture and Share tab rather than having to go through the Twitch app that's on Xbox, because that was like a long and annoying process to do that. You basically link your Twitch account via a QR code, and then once everything's all good and go, there will be a Go Live button there where you basically put the title of your stream, and then you just press the Go Live button and you're live. That's it.
Yeah.
So they made it real simple. It looks very similar to like the Mixer interface. If you ever, streamed when Mixer was a thing.
God, that was years ago now.
Yeah. But I know this is something that people on Xbox have been asking for a while, especially because on PlayStation, it's like PS5, it's like super easy to stream to Twitch and other platforms. So Sean, what do you think about this news?
Well, I think they made it specifically for Donnie Reese, previously of the Xbox Empire, now of Play Some Video Games, of course, asking for this for a long, long time. This is basic stuff. Like this is one of those things. This falls into the why wasn't it there on day one category, but obviously systems were coming in quite hot back then. And I think that's why it's noteworthy more than the thing itself. Like this is just something that we've been expecting from these systems since basically the Xbox One. Like we thought that this was going to be the integration should have been there. Mm-hmm. Of course, just changing over from Mixer, and just when did this become a priority for the teams? Glad it's here. Now that it's here, it's like, okay, cool. But it's mostly noteworthy just because we've been waiting a long, long time for it. And I'll be curious to know who's going to be the next streamer who started with this integration. Like this is really what that's for. Mm-hmm. Is anybody who's interested in it can jump in very easily. There's a video in our Discord. I think Donnie actually posted it. Tom Ward walked through it. Very, very simple, very clean. Mm-hmm. They probably could have screwed this up, but I think it gets the most detail it really gets into is that at one point you can set your bit rate and your resolution, which kind of aligns with, do you have amazing internet or do you have Ryan Turford internet? And then you're off and running, which is, if anybody has streamed running anything through a PC, very complicated, a trillion ways to screw it up. I think that's the console experience overall in just playing games. You don't want to be updating drivers. You don't want to be doing all these other things. The streaming experience is aligned in that way. So if you want to get tinkery, you can go to PC. But if you want super easy, you just want to get started, then plug in a webcam, get a microphone, and you're off and running.
Yeah, I know that we've got some people in the community that started out their kind of Twitch careers doing that. Like Mitch Power, for example, is one person that always comes to mind when I see this type of thing.
That's right.
Because he was doing that for a while, and then eventually he just migrated to just, streaming it from his computer. Like this seems like a really good place to start if you want to get into streaming, because it's just the barrier to entry is it's literally there.
We played alongside a few people who were streaming right from, I think it was from their PlayStations actually, on Extra Life. So if you stream like once a year, now you have a really good option for that. So yeah, that's, again, it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. We've been waiting for it for a long time, kind of like the Cyberpunk thing last week, I think.
Yeah. We're just glad it's here. That's the main thing. We finally made it.
Yeah.
All right.
Totally. We did it.
Next up, speaking of finally making it, Sean, the next couple stories are all about countdown timers that we talked about last week. We got the results of the countdown timers.
Time to eat crow.
Well, I wasn't going to rub it in your face, Sean, but now I kind of have to. So Capcom has finally announced Street Fighter 6, not Resident Evil 4.
Not Resident Evil.
Street Fighter 6 has been announced. We will have more details on the game this summer. They had a short, 20-second trailer that basically had Ryu and then the last announced fighter for Street Fighter 5, whose name I'm blanking on at this point. And they just look at each other, and that's basically the trailer for it, essentially. So it's a game that exists, but everyone's all in a hubbub about the logo for this game.
Ryan.
Because it looks like stock art, but...
It is. It actually is stock art. Somebody had found it. It's like a $75 logo that somebody has up for stock art. It was on
Adobe stock images, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. Probably it's got to go down in history as one of the worst logos. It's not even just bad for Street Fighter, which it is, because you you look at Street Fighter, it's just iconic. And I guess they're just trying to be a little bit different. I'm not sure. And to me, it says the logo speaks certain things to people, you know, and this speaks to me that this is the standard for the next forever. Like they're just trying to get like a foundation started. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of how they add on top of it later. Like where does Championship Edition, where does Turbo lock in on this? Where did I don't know.
Well, they stopped those with Street Fighter 5, Sean. They announced with Street Fighter 5 they will never do those again. And true to their word, terrible. They didn't do those. They just added a bajillion characters via DLC instead of putting out like a turbo version or whatever.
Listen, I am not the type of person who likes to have the mob mentality, the mob outrage. Let's all like get our pitchforks and torches out. But in this case, I think I'm going to make an exception. Yeah. Who has started the change.org petition? We need to get some attention to this. And for the record, I'm not buying Street Fighter no matter what. It has nothing to do with the logo. Yeah. But that logo, just awful. What were they thinking?
It's just so different from all their other logos, and it's just not stylish in any way. It's just kind of generic and plain. So
I guess we're talking about it. Is that the goal?
Yeah.
But like, please Sonic the Hedgehog movie this. Like, go back in. It's not too late. You hopefully haven't printed any like special cups that you're sending out to 7-Elevens or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You can still undo this, Capcom. There's still time.
But going back to
news is
the game itself.
Yeah, the actual story.
Because we should weave back to it because we don't want to talk about the logo today. I'm excited for this again. We haven't seen what the game looks like yet, obviously. No. But from the trailer, it kind of looks like they're using the RE engine based on like the way the character models and kind of the way the backgrounds look. So if it is a Street Fighter game on the RE engine, that gets me really excited because I think the RE engine is really beautiful and cool. And I like fighting games and I like Street Fighter. So I am excited to check this out when it comes out, when we hear more info about it. I will be all over this as long as it comes to Xbox. Because again, we're reading this news story on this show, assuming it even comes to Xbox. But I mean, there's certain reasons that I have that I'm going to delve into here that makes me believe it's coming to Xbox. So that's what we're talking about.
Don't be cagey. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Or do you need to get like your aluminum hat?
There's that leak that everyone knows about from PC that basically leaked games for a bunch of platforms. Street Fighter 6 was listed on there for Xbox. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's fine. Yeah. So it'll totally happen.
Yeah. So that's why we're even talking about it on this show. So I'm very confident it's coming to Xbox, and I can't wait to see more because I like fighting games.
Game Pass day one, baby.
Well, I don't know about that, Sean.
Count it.
It's not. It's no Cyberpunk. Okay. It's not coming Game Pass day one.
You know, this will be my year. This will be my $50 bet.
Yeah.
If they can lock down, if they can swing it from PlayStation exclusive with Street Fighter 4 or Street Fighter 5 to Game Pass. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. And then, but the more exciting announcement, I think, that came from this was that Capcom has announced the Capcom Fighting Game Collection. It will feature 10 games, including all 5 Darkstalkers games, including some games that are making their North American debut, which I think is super cool. Red Earth, which is going to be like a prehistoric fighting game that only appeared in arcades until now. That's his first home release, as well as Cyberbots, Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, and Hyper Street Fighter 2. All 10 games will have online play featuring rollback netcode, which is awesome, and will be available on Xbox Series X and S, as well as Xbox One on June 24th. I love Darkstalkers as a series. It's basically like this, almost like this, like really silly take on like gothic horror, like movie monsters, like werewolves and mummies and all kinds of like weird, horror creatures fighting it out in this like Street Fighter style fighting game. And we had some of the Darkstalkers games on 360 that were ported, but this is the first time we're getting a lot of them here in North America, let alone on home console. So I'm jacked for this release. I think this is a really solid package. And if you're into fighting games, especially like Street Fighter style fighting games, I think this is going to be really up your alley. Whereas Sean, I'm imagining this announcement probably did nothing for you, right?
Listen, the best part about this is that we're different people and we like different things. I think that makes the show as good as it is, which is to say that it is amazing. No, I have absolutely zero interest in this. The one thing that you did mention there that kind of loops me back to the original announcement and the speculation that Street Fighter 6 might be on a Resident Evil engine. I'm curious about the rollback code. Like, how does it work in multiplayer? Can you build that sort of thing in? Like, don't you need pretty custom fighting engines for these things to exist on?
I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
I think they found a way to make it work. If they're making it work with these games,
very interesting.
They're gonna make it. They're gonna somehow make it work with the RE engine. I mean, it's good. It sounds like it's either gonna be Unreal 4 or Resident or RE Engine. I think it's just visually
Unreal,
looking at the
makes
trailer.
sense.
If the trailer is from in Engine, then it's probably Resident Evil Engine. So
interesting. Well, I've got my other Street Fighter. Like they've got anniversary collections. Like I like Street Fighter. Like me saying even earlier saying I'm not going to be buying this game probably not day one. But Street Fighter is it, man. As some people it's Mortal Kombat. Some people it's Tekken. Some people whatever. Like Street Fighter was it. That's where I learned everything. It's probably Street Fighter, Killer Instinct are my two historically. I'm very curious to see how these things turn out, but this collection, like there's a lot of cool names out there. It seems like I'm just walking into an arcade. Happy for you. But did nothing for me. Sorry.
Nice. And to throw it out there from my fighting game hierarchy, we've got Arc System Works fighting games like Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue.
It's not even on my
then
radar.
Mortal Kombat, then Street Fighter.
Oh.
That's my hierarchy for fighting games.
Okay. Okay.
And then
oh man, I gotta get Virtual Fighter in there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, and then Dead or Alive is probably right below Street Fighter. And then then Soul Calibur is right there too. So there you go.
Goodness gracious, we got to start a fighting game podcast, man. Look at all these.
I've played a lot of fighting games.
Through.
I really like fighting games.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
Nice.
Last news story again. This is like the Ryan Turford News Week, Sean. I'm sorry, but
I'm also here.
With the other countdown, this came to us from Atlas. In a surprising move, Atlas have announced Soul Hackers 2, a sequel to 1997's Sega Saturn title called Soul Hackers. It was also remade on the 3DS, so there is a 3DS version of this. But this time, it's going to launch on Xbox One and Series X and S on August 26th. They put out a trailer for this too, and this game looks awesome. It kind of looks like so Soul Hackers, the original, was basically like a first-person dungeon crawly game, like RPG. And then you had kind of battles that looked like almost like Phantasy Star or the first Persona, where you had all the monsters kind of lined up, and then you're fighting them in first person. But this time around, they're doing it all in third person, and then the fights look like they're kind of like ripped straight out of Persona or Tokyo Mirage Sessions. In fact, watching the trailer, it gave me a lot of Tokyo Mirage Session vibes. So I imagine it's going to play very similar to that game, which gets me hyped because I really like that game a lot. And I'm not really a huge fan of first person like RPGs at all. So I'm like stoked for this announcement. I'm also like super excited that this is coming to Xbox because I mean, the last Atlas game we got on Xbox, John, was Catherine on 360. As well as Street Fighter, not Street Fighter, Persona 4 Arena Ultimax was the other one.
Right.
So those were like the only two releases.
Xbox buying Sega, confirmed, obviously. Let me say this, and I don't have like an attachment really at all to any of these things. Of course. But I would much rather this than just like weeks after weeks of like who is Xbox buying. This is awesome. Let's talk about actual games. This is great, man.
Exactly. I think we've got a good slate of announcements this week. And Soul Hackers 2, if you like JRPGs, I think this is one to put on your radar. I think it looks great. And Atlas never disappoints when it comes to this stuff. So I am jacked for this one. Also, the weirdest thing about this, too, is, again, Soul Hackers, the remake, came out on 3DS. This is not coming to Nintendo Switch. It's coming to PlayStation. It's coming to Xbox, weird. But not Nintendo. So...
Nice, man.
But it's also coming.
We have a lot.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we have a lot of people in the community who really do side with like the Ryan Turford excitement, man. They jump on into the Discord and like I kind of know already who's gonna be jumping on this excitement alongside with you if they're not already doing that right now. Well, so good on you, man.
Not only that, but this also is gonna be Atlas's first like current gen game, so Xbox Series X or PS5 game as well.
Holy crap, is it really?
Yeah, so I wonder what they're going to do with the visuals in this game, because also, again, this isn't coming to Switch, so I think maybe there might be some stuff with the development, like maybe they're doing some cool stuff with the graphics or the gameplay that maybe they couldn't do on Switch. And I'm excited to see what they do.
Xbox does what Nintendo don't. That's what people have said for a very long time.
Hashtag get hyped. But anyways, let's let some of our friends into the car with us.
You haven't said that in forever.
It's time for the carpool, Sean. So folks, I know if you would like to be part of the carpool, of course, you can submit your questions on Twitter whenever we do our question posts over on Yumi Capri's on Twitter, or you can join the Yumi Capri Discord. It's free to join. The link is in the show notes. Just go to the Xbox Drive section, tag one of us in it and say it's a question for the show, and we'll read it on the show. Or as well, if you're watching us on YouTube, just leave your question in the comments and we'll answer it on the show, just like Todd Oxtra at Toxtra did. Now, this is actually a question from last week, but Todd stuck it in maybe 20 minutes after we finished recording. So we're going to be talking about this one here. So Todd asks, outside of acquisitions, Xbox has been really quiet. When do you think that we'll hear next from Xbox? How often do you think we should hear from Xbox going forward? So again, it sounds like it's just going to be a quiet year from Xbox already. We've talked about it on the show before, but Sean, when do you think is the next time we hear from Xbox at all?
Yeah, man. It's, we talked on the Nintendo Drive a couple of weeks ago with the Nintendo Direct. I think it was the same thing last year, if I remember correctly. PlayStation had around the same time, they had sort of like a state of play, which I don't think landed all that well last year. Nintendo seemed to own the very beginning of the calendar year last year. Seems to be the same thing this year. And Nintendo keeps crushing it, man. Like, I think I'm a numbers kind of person. Like, I just look at what they did last year and the way they lined up the year. And then the result of it was just another banner year for Nintendo. And while I think there's still obviously a lot of growth happening with Game Pass and subscribers and engagement and all these things, like everything's doing great, they have got to get back on this games thing. When I think back to last year, some of the early successes were things like Outriders is coming day one and you didn't expect it, but this is a game that you're actually going to really like. And they kind of got that MLB news, which shook a lot harder last year than this year. I think we're somewhat surprised and maybe delighted that it is an annual thing. Perhaps it's forever always going to be day one on Game Pass. Very cool. But that shock factor has very quickly drizzled and is not really there anymore. So they've got to get, I think, the fastest thing they can do, aside from just getting these games out, which they're going to come out when they come out. It's these Game Pass announcements. And hopefully there's things that are for games that are coming out very soon. They could have done something like a Dying Light, and maybe there's a window of opportunity coming up soon for that. But yeah, man, it's got to be games. And I agree with Todd. It has been all acquisitions, and we're going to be waiting for a couple of years to see what happens. Oh, did we even talk about Call of Duty?
Yep.
I don't know if
it's
there's
not
a question about Call of Duty,
which is why we didn't put it as an Easter egg.
Oh, okay, that's right. It was a rumor
to be skipping next
Right.
year. So we'll talk about it when it's official news. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, they got to do something. They got to get games. And I think the fastest thing is Game Pass. That's the easy answer.
Yeah. And I think when the next time we hear about it from Xbox, I think it's just going to depend on when Redfall comes out. Like if it actually is coming out this summer,
interesting,
like it was supposed to be, like when they announced it last year. Because if it is coming out this summer, then I think they'll do like an Inside Xbox before the summer, like maybe March or April. Is what I would assume. And then it might have
Chris is on the same lines there. Chris Parks, I think too. I've got some of my comments kind of speeding into his question as well, I think.
Sure. Let's bring him in right now, actually, because I forgot that these tied together. So Chris Parks at ParksC1972 on Twitter asks, "Hey, you crazy guys, longtime listener from the UK. With no E3 this year and with Xbox's ever-growing studio lineup, should Xbox going forward still stick with their one big summer E3 type show or go to the Nintendo Direct route and have smaller shows at a higher cadence?" And yeah, they've been doing this with the Inside Xbox stuff because they usually give us those like once every 3 months, but they're not always huge. Sometimes it's just indie games, or sometimes it's like very small drip feeds on things we already know about, like the Top Gun, DLC for the moment where Paris put like the sunglasses on and stuff like that. We got like little moments from Inside Xbox, or just a lot of times they do like interviews with the developers and they're less showing the games off when they do those. So I think it's just going to depend on their release calendar as to how often they're going to do that this year. Again, if Redfall is coming out this summer, like they say it's going to, then I think we'll have an Inside Xbox before the summer. But if it's not coming out till later, then I think they might just wait. They might just wait till E3 at this point, unless there are bigger Game Pass announcements. And even then, they feel comfortable enough, I think, to just announce those on the Xbox blog and on Twitter at this point.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where my mind was going, but they're not doing that, and that's actually what we're seeing from PlayStation. Rather than doing a state of play or anything, you're actually seeing quite a bit of information coming out on just a blog. What they do, the VR announcement was just a blog post. Like, it's kind of a big deal. I think you might want to, you might think that maybe that'd be a video of some sort, but yeah, they're really leaning on that as a source. And what I like about PlayStation's approach actually is that they do seem to have a bit of a blend on that. And Xbox still, after all these years, hasn't got this sorted out. And so to the point, or the question from Chris and from Todd as well, like, I want to see them figure this out, and they might be painful. I think this is the problem, is they sit back, and I actually do this personally. Like, I sit back, I'm like, I'm going to create like the perfect plan, and it's going to be the most amazing thing that we're going to deliver, and it falls flat. And it's like, you've just spent 9 months figuring this thing out, and then you put it out there and it sucks and it doesn't land, and then you go back to the drawing board. We're going to be sitting here for another 9 months and figuring out. And it's like, it's better to just like keep going, keep announcing and keep iterating, like figure out whatever version of a Nintendo Direct it is. You need it, man. I know that there's an aversion to copying, which I'm glad that they're doing. And that's kind of what we've gotten in the past with everything else they've done. It's like, you can just see them trying not to do a Nintendo Direct, but in certain cases, like maybe do a Nintendo Direct. I think that's kind of where we're at is a little something, but just try it. This perfection it's terrible, man. And I think it's really holding them back, and it gives them a perception that they're being quiet, which sucks. But you can also see where the focus is. They're focusing on buying companies, and that's really where it is. But they need another little team of going like, how are we keeping the community engaged and excited for what's in store for this year? We definitely need that kind of thing, man.
Yeah, because at this point, besides Starfield and Redfall, like, we don't even know what Xbox is doing this year, if anything. So it's just like,
but even if it's third-party stuff, lean into the indie stuff. Like, there's ways to do this. It doesn't always have to be this juggernaut, and that's the scale and the variety that I'm talking about. Yeah. So yeah, just come on, Xbox, wake up, man.
Absolutely.
We're here for you. Well, we're fans.
Speaking of that, Sean, let's bring in Court Lalonde at Court Lalonde on Twitter, who asks a question. It's very similar to the topic we just brought up, which is, how can Xbox get back some of that momentum they had going into 2023? And I think it's just, first of all, I think Starfield is probably going to create at least some of that momentum going into into 2023, where I think next year was probably going to be
2023. What the heck is anybody talking about? We're in 2022 right now.
Well, again, he's like, because he's talking about the momentum they had at the end of last year. How can they get something of that back going into next year, essentially? Whereas next year, I think they don't have to work as much for it, because I think next year is going to be a pretty big year for Xbox. That's why when I'm imagining when either like Fable or Perfect Dark comes out next year, as well.
That's the thing that nobody's worried about. Yeah, 2023 is good. Starfield's at the end of this year. The Xbox is going to be fine in like November.
Yeah, it's just getting to November. That's good. Is what we're worried about.
Yeah, let's worry about the rest of this year. Yeah, no, I have absolutely no concern. That's why I was a little confused. I'm like, they're good 2020, late 2022 on. Everything's going to be totally fine. I have no doubt about that. Hellblade's going to crush at a certain point. I don't doubt that that's going to be a 2023 game. But yeah, it's between now and then. They need to bridge that gap pretty significantly, I would say.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And yeah, I think it's just going to come down to games and what they've got to announce, whether it's Game Pass acquisitions or whatever else they got going forward. But again,
what if they surprised us with Motorsport? The only reason I'm hoping that they don't give me Motorsport, which I would love, by the way, is this stupid fantasy critic league that I'm like somebody else has picked. I don't want it. I think it's the trophy room actually in our Xbox Drive versus the trophy room. They have that as a pick. I'm like, there's no chance. And as a gamer, as a podcaster, as a fan of Xbox, please, I love Forza Motorsport. Those games are great. But it's this dang fantasy league that has me kind of hoping that it slips to next year. That's so stupid, and I acknowledge that.
I still really think that that's not a this year game, but I guess we'll find out. But we'll see. All right, next up, Drew Agnew at iDrewby on Twitter asks, "Hey, Canadian beauties, there's a lot of hype revolving Valve's upcoming Steam Deck, and it looks like it has massive potential. Do you think Microsoft could have made a similar device with similar success? A Windows experience tailored for a handheld, and Game Pass is something that I need." So here's the thing, Drew, and I think that this is where I differ with your opinion at least a little bit. I think that what makes the Steam Deck have such a high potential is just Steam as a platform in particular, as far as people just really just having these gigantic Steam libraries and them wanting to take that on the go with them, I think is a huge difference and really plays into the appeal. Whereas I feel like a Microsoft like Steam Deck console, for example, would probably be more locked in on the Microsoft Game Store, ecosystem. It would still probably have, a version of Windows that ran on it. But it probably wouldn't be open to the point where you could probably not install Steam games or Epic Store games, or even what we're seeing on the Steam Deck now, where like Good Old Games, for example, have already stated that none of their games are going to work on the Steam Deck. So I think like that.
None. Wow.
Yeah. Like it's not going to be compatible with the store itself.
Oh, wow.
So I imagine something similar would happen if Microsoft released their own platform, where it would basically be what's on the Windows Store. So yes, you'd get those Game Pass titles, but you'd be missing so much more that's in the Steam database, where literally every game that comes to PC pretty much comes to Steam unless it's exclusive to Epic Game Store, essentially. Combined with the fact that people like me are out there that have like 500 game libraries on Steam, that would love to play that on a handheld that you wouldn't be able to do with a Microsoft platform. So that's kind of what I think about that. I think that it would still, do well, but I don't think it would do as well as something like the Steam Deck because of the Microsoft ecosystem. But Sean, what do you think?
I think it's still risky. I think that there is a lot of hype, but I'm still curious to see how this thing actually lands. And I'm also thinking that probably very much like a PlayStation VR, I think that the sequel is really what people are going to want. Kind of like iPad 2, way better. Assassin's Creed 2, of course, is the sequel kind of thing is really what I'm curious on this. Form factor, I think, is a big deal. I also think in terms of the messaging and the number of things that Xbox is working on, they got to be really focused. And I really do think, Phil Spencer's maybe referred to VR as a bit of a distraction. And I think the same would go for this. They didn't have to pour any resources into developing a piece of hardware or distract you from buying something else. So I think that they can kind of have their cake and eat it too with this, in that Valve takes all the risk. There's no guarantee that this is going to be like an actual moneymaker, although it turns out that might actually happen because it's hardware that links directly to purchasing software, which they own the entire pipeline there. So they're very well set up for this sort of thing. But they can still sell Game Pass to this thing. It seems like there's a partnership opportunity for this. And if I ran Xbox, I would probably have done the exact same thing. If I knew that this was coming, I'd let them do it, keep going with it, and then focus on what other devices are there in the world that Game Pass can exist. This might just be that extra thing, because I think they're kind of tapped out on the number of boxes they want to sell you. They'll just look to everybody else who's also selling boxes and put Game Pass on that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next up, DJ Cox at Delvin Cox on Twitter asks, if Xbox were to make a console similar to the NES Classic, but for the original Xbox, what 5 games/features would make it a day one purchase? So I think with the difference between this and something like the NES Classic, at least when the NES Classic came out, we really only had the NES games on Virtual Console at the time, so you could buy them, but I mean, they were on the Wii U, and come on, who was playing the Wii U at that point, right, Sean? So whereas the original Xbox, I think a lot of the games we really wanted are on backwards compatibility right now. So I feel like it would make it feel less special. Like if they put Halo on this, for example, the original Xbox version of Halo, I don't think it would feel as special. Because we already have that available to us in Master Chief Collection, right? So
yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So the 5 games I would put as someone who loves the original Xbox, you'd have to pull some licenses, a couple licenses for some of this stuff. But I would still probably put like Halo 1 and 2 on there because, again, they're so similar to the console. You got to put Fusion Frenzy on there. That's got to be a thing. Of course.
We agree.
Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory has got to be on there. And then you maybe move to some of the weirder stuff, some of the more rare stuff. I mean, you got to have, first of all, you got to have Ninja Gaiden because it's a seminal game on the original Xbox. And then from a last pick, I would say you go with Panzer Dragoon Orta. Yes, it's backwards compatible. Yes, it's a game that, not everyone's heard of, but, they did that with the NES Classic as well, where they included some lesser known games on it as well that were top quality releases. And Panzer Dragoon Orta is definitely one of the best games on the console. So I would say those would be my picks. But Sean, what do you think? What would make it a day one system for you?
I don't even know if I can come up with games that would make it a day one thing. I think it'd be interesting, but I think the question itself is more interesting than the product that we would be creating here. I can't disagree with pretty much anything that you said. I might add on games like Dead to Rights or Max Payne. I really like those. Like there was very much a Matrix inspired era of bullet time stuff. Maybe that's wasn't there what was the Matrix game on there? Was actually just called
Enter the Matrix, but then you also had
Enter the Matrix.
But you also had the Path of Neo, which came out later because everyone was upset you didn't play as Neo in Enter the Matrix. Enter the Matrix is a real bad game, by the way, but Path of Neo is actually pretty good.
I put that on there. Yeah, no, I mean Halo you kind of have to have on there, things like that.
Yeah.
And then why not throw on a Tiger Woods game? Let's throw a Tiger Woods 2004 or something.
There you go. So DDR Extreme, that's the real game we're both clamping for because that did come to the original
Star Wars
Xbox.
Battlefront. Oh man.
Yeah. Next up, Joey Splats on the Discord asks, do you think Game Pass needs a family pass? It would help grow the numbers. Would it help grow the numbers in the way that they want? Absolutely. This is something that people love on Nintendo, doing the family pass thing. And I'm kind of surprised they haven't done it already.
So am I.
On Xbox, although there is the risk you run where there's people like us in the community who are smart about this type of thing, Sean. And even though we're not in the same family, we all jump on the same game. Like Family Pass, and we end up paying like $10 for a Switch Online for the year. So
sometimes I offer it as an extra life prize, like join my Nintendo Switch family, get all the perks, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it is very surprising of who does it and who doesn't. The fact that Nintendo does it, considering all the other stuff that the practices and the policies that they've got, like that. The Family Pass is very anti-Nintendo from the sense of the way that you can really take advantage of it. From the family sense, that's core Nintendo. Like that absolutely makes sense for me as a dad to have everybody set up like within my family. I love it. But yeah, you can easily get around it. And that's probably what is preventing Xbox from doing it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they announced it this year, to be honest with you. Like to his point, like that is absolutely the way that you make it accessible. You put the gamer at the center, or whatever the heck they say. I think that does make sense. I'd be curious to know like how I feel like there's going to be like an extra level of Microsoft attention to verifying. Are you for real in this family? Like, is this a thing? But like Netflix has it, like everybody does it with all these different subscriptions. And there's still ways to do it. Like you can still, I could have like it depends on like what system you set up as your home device. And if anybody ever has questions on that, like feel free to reach out in the Discord. We can kind of like walk you through. If you've got a best friend and they've got Game Pass and you want to take advantage of it, there is a way to go ahead and do that. But yeah, there's always a way to circumvent the system. But Joey Splats brings up a really good point, man.
Yeah.
Let's see it in Xbox.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the last question comes to us from Delroy on the Discord, who asks, now that the reviews are live for Elden Ring, which is currently sitting at a 98 on Metacritic, it's like the third highest rated game of all time.
All time.
Are you going to dive into Elden Ring, Sean? It's also, by the way, the highest rated game of all time on OpenCritic at a 97.
My God, dude, I knew that this game was going to review quite well. I thought it was going to be in the 90s, but yeah, you're talking Ocarina of Time, Half-Life, like you're into the upper echelon of games in the history of games that have been made. How can I not pay attention to this? This is the thing that I think is interesting, maybe even more so than just Elden Ring itself, but the conversation around review scores. I think we all should listen to the actual context of reviews. Mm-hmm. And I am going to admit here, I haven't read a single word of any of these reviews, but I can't help but be impacted by what you just said. It's sitting at 98 here and 97 over here. Like, I feel like that matters. Mm-hmm. I cannot say that I'm going to be diving in. I've got a billion games on the go. I am the world's first fanboy of Triangle Strategy, so I'm all over that game. And Destiny 2, and still Pokemon, and Horizon, and all these things. There's so many things. I can't say that I'm going to, but at the same time, like, man, I'm looking. I'm that meme. I'm like the guy with the girlfriend. He's like looking over shoulder, looking at the other one. Like, holy crap! There's another game that is. This is in my wheelhouse. I'm very interested in it. And I believe you are picking it up, Ryan Turford.
I am. I actually got one over. I ended up after months and months and months and months of saying I was not going to pick up this game at all because I'm not really a huge Souls fan. I was watching a live stream of it and I was like, oh, I like the way that the open world works with the Souls formula.
Yeah.
Plus they brought in some of the stealth elements from Sekiro that actually I really liked, which is what I like about that game, which is the one Souls-like game I beat. So I'm like, yeah. I think I'm actually going to pick this one up after all. So yeah, I think I'm excited.
There's so much hype about it.
Yeah,
this is a crowd draws crowds. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely something here. And by the way, what you just did is a classic Sean move. That's what I did with everything with Nintendo last year. I'm like, I'm not buying Metroid. I'm not buying this and blah, blah, blah. I bought everything.
Yeah.
I'm not buying an OLED model. Totally bought it. I love it, Ryan. I like to see you change your mind a little bit.
Yeah, it happens. It doesn't happen often, but this time is definitely a notable exception. But Sean, we got to get going. So before we go, Sean, plugs go.
Sometimes you do a 360, Ryan. Sometimes you just do a 180. You can find me on Twitter and on Twitch at Sean Capri, Sean like Connor, Capri like the pants. And if you guys want to support the show, just like Dave Moore, OG host of the Xbox Drive, go to patreon.com/Yumi Capri. Bring it on, everybody. Let's go.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You can find us on Twitter at Yumi Capri's, on YouTube at youtube.com/Yumi Capri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Sean Capri, I am Ryan Turford. This has been episode 228 of the Xbox Drive, and we out. Bye.
The Xbox Drive is fueled by patrons at patreon.com/Yumi Capri. And from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful to the more than 70 patrons who support us each and every month, with a special thanks to our Capremium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team. You can join me and the rest of the Phoenix Overdrive team at extra-life.org and raise money for the kids. and Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on this show and the Nintendo Drive. You can download his latest album, In My Element, on Spotify and Apple Music. Our platinum producers, Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth, and all of our gold members, Argo, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Dano, Emily O'Kelly, Foolish Fuji, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Marcus O'Neill, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, RJ Kern, Skinny Matt, Tony Baker, and Xavier Reyes. If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/YumiCapri and choose the tier that works for you.